As the Money Burns is an original podcast by Nikki Woodard. Based on historical research, this is a deep exploration into what happened to a set of actual heirs and heiresses to some of America's most famous fortunes when the Great Depression hits. Each episode has 3 primary sections. Section 1 is a narrative story. Section 2 goes deeper into the historical facts. Section 3 focuses on contemporary, emotional, and personal connections. Story recap. Avoiding his boring bank job, Frank Shields tours the tennis circuit. Meanwhile, lifelong friends and distant relations, Vincent Astor supports FDR's presidential campaign. Now back to As the Money Burns. Millionaires Convention. Many feeling the economic pinch lower summer participation, but those who remain wealthy gather for another round of seaside fun. Section 1. Story. Wednesday, August 10th, 1932, Glen Cove, Long Island. Out from New York Harbor, a fleet of high-priced, prestigious yachts make their way down to Newport, Rhode Island. The lead yacht, Nourmahal, is captained by Commodore William Stewart. Nourmahal's owner, Vincent Astor, is a member and previous head of the New York Yacht Club. This year, fewer members participate as belts tighten with ongoing economic difficulties. The dazzling and most coveted are still participating. The Nourmahal, sunburnt Ogden Mills in his Avalon, Weedamo, and Vanity among the limited white-winged playthings, with owners and family friends serving more as skippers during trips and races. They head first to New Haven, then Newport, on to Mattapoisett, then back to Newport for ocean races. The Astor Cup, sponsored by Vincent Astor, and the King's Cup, sponsored by Britain's King George V. It is summer again, after all, and we all know what that means. Ever since the end of the Civil War, America's wealthiest head to the shoreline for cooler temperatures and seaside fun. Only this year, the glittering coast is a little less magnificent, with several of the 40-room cottages boarded up and not occupied this summer, not even as the dreaded rental, something in the past considered way déclassé, both being the renter as well as the rentee. Well, even with the zeros falling off the back of the numbers, emptiness pervades. Those facing ongoing tough financial times are not ponying up for the social set activities and flair. And still, there are those that come, those not impeded by imploding bank accounts. Newport's Tennis Week is one of those not to miss, even if skipping the other events like the flower and horse shows, and of course, yachting. Nope, this 1932 season promises to be one of the best in recent years. Despite all budgeting concerns, Newport's Tennis Week remains the premier summer event, a veritable Millionaires Convention, though there is a notable absence of regulars. This fashionable week has become less ostentatiously glamorous than the past. It seems the most fashionable trend is economizing. Events form around charities, church bazaars, and benefit entertainments. Luncheons, teas, and small dinner parties held in place of large balls. The Clambake Club and other non-private venues are used for entertaining. Yet still, locations like Bailey's Beach serve a reduced clientele. Amidst the frivolity, a major announcement is made. Mrs. Oliver H.P. Belmont has sold Marlborough, a definable marked end of an era. Mrs. Belmont is the former Alva Vanderbilt, the Gilded Age Society queen who defied and toppled the other society queen, Caroline Astor. Alva also began the trend of divorce and remarriage in the highest wealthy set and was a strong proponent of women's suffrage. She also forced her daughter, Consuelo Vanderbilt, into an ill-fated, unfortunate dollar princess marriage to the Duke of Marlborough. This summer in France, Alva has taken quite ill as her children gather round to spend her last moments, including the 1930 America's Cup winner, Harold Vanderbilt, who also goes by Mike. Even a formidable force like Alva eventually dims. Unlike some of the other coveted Newport properties, Marlborough has been frequently boarded up since the Vanderbilt divorce in 1895 and permanently from 1919 onward, so not related to the current financial crisis. None of Alva's adult children want the burden of maintaining the estate. Thus, Harold arranges the sale to financier Frederick Prince, who has bought the property and intends to fully entertain there. Prince also owns a chateau in Pau, France, and another opulent residence in Massachusetts. In past years, Prince rented the Crossways Cottage, the former Stuyvesant Fish residence, now owned by the De Pasters. Prince also owns the yacht Weetamo, which for 1932 Harold skippers and wins several competitions. This year, Prince's wife is recovering from injuries sustained during a fall recently aboard their other luxury yacht, Lone Star. Commonly referred as the White Elephant, the sale of Marlborough itself is seen as a sign of hope that such a large property, after over a decade of non-use, can be sold and bought in these darker times. Though it seems Prince got quite a deal on the price, hence at an extremely low price with furnishings included. Even with a less than grand attendance of regulars, Tennis Week promised to be the best in 10 years with plenty of excitement and fun. The flush of young athletic men always delights the young debutantes, heiresses, and even older society matrons. Saturday, August 13th, 1932. Prior to the men's events, several females finished their round-robin doubles tourney with prizes given by Helen Dinsmore Astor. Among the 14 pairs, the female players include Countess Gladys Vanderbilt Szechenyi, the 1931 Davis Cup chaperone Mrs. Maud Barger-Wallach, and among the younger set, the sisters, and on opposing teams, Virginia French and Ellen Tucky French. Wednesday, August 17, 1932. Back on the grass courts, tennis sensation and movie star handsome Frank Shields returns with the rest of the American, Wimbledon, and Davis Cup players, along with several others. Sea Verge resident, richest boy, and babyface heir Huntington Hartford plays well enough to make it into the rounds. In the first round, he faces off and loses to Britain's premier player, Bunny Austin, while Frank's Davis Cup replacement, Wilmer Allison, beats fellow American Clyde Adams before facing off with British Fred Perry. At one point, 5 courts play simultaneous with Frank, George Lott, 1932 Wimbledon singles men champion and world's #1 player, Ellsworth Vines, and Gregory Mangan. Mangan will do the impossible and beat Bunny Austin in 3 straight sets. Ellsworth will beat Wilmer for the finals at Newport. But the real notice are the millionaires in the galleries, both for their remaining fortunes and noteworthy fashions. Mrs. Helen Dinsmore Astor in a candy-striped sports dress of red, white, and gray silk. She sits with her husband Vincent Astor and his best friend, William Stewart, who joins them after the conclusion of the yacht races with today's King's Cup race, which disappointingly only had 2 sloops competing, the Vanity and Winner Weetamo, which Harold serves as captain. Nearby Astor cousin and newlywed William Sam Van Allen with his red-haired bride Elizabeth Betty Kent Van Allen enjoy watching the sport along with his brother James Henry Van Allen and his wife Eleanor Van Allen. In other notable fashions, Mrs. William Goby Queenie Lowe wears a white sports suit with a jabot of white and black polka dots with a polka dot cuff and a large black straw hat with a white pom-pom. Another lady wore red slippers with a white sports dress and hat. Elsewhere, the Breakers is open again this season. Dowager Alice Vanderbilt has alternated seasons between her Fifth Avenue mansion and seaside cottage, and this year Alice returns to Newport with several daughters and granddaughters in tow. Artist Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney accompanies her nieces. Little Gloria Vanderbilt and this season future debutante Gladys Szechenyi. At nearby Beaulieu, rumors are the intrepid reporter and grandson Cornelius Neil Vanderbilt IV will be taking a break from his presidential news coverage for some seaside relaxation, though his parents, Brigadier General Cornelius Neely Vanderbilt III and Grace Wilson Vanderbilt, are less than pleased with their son's FDR adulation. At Sea Verge, Huntington Hartford's smothering mother, Henrietta Hartford, hosted dinner for 40 for his wife, Mary Lee Epling Hartford. Another guest is Henrietta's niece, Mary Booker, who last year joined the couple during their secret honeymoon in Hawaii. A more relaxed set of activities as colonists will drift into the fall, including a whimsical nightshirt race. Another upcoming event will be a full solar eclipse, Wednesday, August 31st, 1932, for most of northeastern America, one of several eclipses in a semester series from 1931 to 1935. When the summer ends, more than usual will linger in their seaside cottages through part of November. Many have marked their voting residence at this enclave and will leave after the 1932 presidential election. Everyone, indeed, is ready for a change. Section 2, History and Historiography. Our story began back in the summer of 1929 in Newport, Rhode Island, where many of high society and the social register gather for their annual summer pilgrimage for seaside activities, most of which is to maintain or further establish the societal pecking order and was the best locale to broker elite engagements for later winter marriages. The colonial town Newport gained more prominence after the Civil War when the Gilded Age fortunes wanted a cooler summer location and began building elaborate mansions referred as cottages. Famed architect Richard Morris Hunt's Marble House began the trend of replacing many of the former wooden houses with magnificent 40-room mansions along Bellevue Avenue. Marble House was a birthday gift to the highly ambitious Alva Erskine Smith Vanderbilt, who was most determined to social climb into the highest echelons of capital S society. She herself came from society in the South, but not quite as prestigious to infiltrate the illustrious Caroline Astor's 400. The massive Vanderbilt fortune, too, was not considered acceptable to the snooty New York elite. Still, the formidable Alva plays their daughters against each other by non-inviting the young Carrie Astor to the opening of Alva's new Fifth Avenue Chateau and another Hunt creation in New York. Later, Alva will also force her daughter Consuelo Vanderbilt to marry the Duke of Marlborough, for which another ball was held at Marble House for the engagement. After divorcing William K. Vanderbilt, Alva retains ownership of Marble House as it was her birthday present. However, would use another Newport cottage, Belcourt, also designed by Hunt, during her marriage to Oliver Belmont. She would close Marble House permanently in 1919 when she moved to France to be near her daughter, who was now happily remarried to French aviator Jacques Balsan. None of Alva's children wanted the expense of upkeep of the cottage, which needs a minimum of 40 servants to maintain. Via Vanderbilt relations, Alva's in-laws are Alice Vanderbilt and Cornelius Vanderbilt II, who built the nearby breakers, also designed by Hunt. Their surviving son, Cornelius Neely Vanderbilt III, and his wife, Grace Wilson Vanderbilt, stay in Beaulieu House, built in 1859, is one of Newport's oldest mansions, which was also bought by John Jacob Astor III, granduncle of Vincent Astor and his siblings. Neely and Grace first rented the home, then bought it in 1911. Marble House is situated on the south by Beaulieu and on the north by another Astor mansion, Beechwood, owned by William Backhouse Astor Jr. and his wife, Gilded Age Society Queen, Caroline Astor, whose grandson, Vincent Astor, controls it in 1932. Grace's nephew, Robert Wilson Goulet, and his wife returned to his cottage, another Hunt design, Ochre Court, after a 2-year absence, and the Goulet couple is feted throughout the colony at various dinners. Via Belmont relations, Alva's sister-in-law and actress Eleanor Elise Robson Belmont, upon widowhood, abandons her estate titled By the Sea for the Berkshires and other areas. By the Sea will for a time be rented by Hope Diamond owner Evelyn Wash McLean. Now remember, Evelyn's husband, Washington Post owner Edward Ned McLean, will be banished by Helen Astor from Newport society around 1914. But newspapers in 1927 and 1929 will reference the couple residing at By the Sea, though I see no mention of them during the 1930s except for at Bar Harbor and other summer hotspots. Other cottages in use during the 1932 season include the Elm, the Astor's Beechwood, the Van Allen's Wakehurst, and Hartford's Sea Verge. Rough Point is not mentioned in the reports as the formerly awkward tall heiress Doris Duke and her socially ambitious mother, Nanaline Duke, remain abroad and will be spotted later in August at Cannes. Barbara Hutton, too, is traveling around France, though her family only previously rented in Newport. And John Jacob Astor VI, a.k.a. Jakey, skips hanging with his disagreeable older half-brother Vincent Astor at Beechwood, preferring to make his way westward in a grand world tour from Asia to Europe before matriculating to Harvard. Princess Louise Van Allen Mdivani and her husband Prince Alexis Mdivani were anticipated but not confirmed to join her family. However, at a Bar Harbor estate, radio magnate Atwater Kent and his family entertain at the former Vanderbilt estate Sonnagy, while his daughter Elizabeth Betty Kent Van Allen spends time with her new in-laws at Wakehurst. By the 1920s, it was considered that it would take at least 3 seasons to finally break into the elite of the elites. New money always trying to join old money. Only Newport, with its highest of the highest elites and stuffy rules, meant many had started avoiding the enclave and at least choosing the more open and fun scenes at Bar Harbor, Palm Beach, or Southampton, if not remaining abroad in Europe, at least for the younger members. However, in 1932, there is a resurgence of interest and attendance at Newport. Young members might be economizing, so using family and family friends' residences for vacation rather than footing larger expenditures. Still, many regulars are missing, and it is harder to find in the records who isn't there versus who is. Newport is not only known for Tennis Week at its casino, but several yachting events, the annual regatta, Ida Lewis Yacht Club, the Astor Cup, and King's Cup among some of the races, all within a short period of time. Every few years, the America's Cup returns when a challenge has been issued, but the next in our story timeline will be in 1934. In modern times, another is due in 2024. The Astor Cup yachting competition began in 1882, and the first trophy was donated by John Jacob Astor III, uncle to John Jacob Astor IV, and granduncle to Vincent Astor. Vincent would sponsor a similar Astor Cup for auto racing. The King's Cup yachting trophy began when King Edward VII, formerly the longest-running Prince of Wales and son of Queen Victoria, donated the trophy to the New York Yacht Club. Upon Edward's death in 1912, another cup would be donated by his son and successor, King George V. The Queen's Cup would be donated by Queen Elizabeth II in 1953. As of 2023, another King's Cup for King Charles III in relation to this race has not been established. By the way, bittersweet good news. Charles Lindbergh and his wife welcomed their second son, John Moore Lindbergh, on Tuesday, August 16, 1932. Immediately with the arrival comes threats of kidnapping and murder for the newborn. Life recycles. What is old is new, and what is new becomes old. Patterns reemerge and continue. Life renews, but the dark times aren't over. But don't worry, the good inevitably returns, even if not as quickly as we wish it. Section 3, Contemporary and Personal Relevance. Recently, the Mega Millions reached the third largest American lottery payout ever, $1.55 billion, and was won by one man in Florida with a lump sum payout of $783 million. The largest jackpot sole winner is Edwin Castro in November 2022 Powerball of $2.04 billion, with a lump sum of $997.6 million in California. As of March 2023, several reports mention he has already bought 2 homes, one $4 million and another in $25 million range, plus he has hired 3 bodyguards. The latter expenditures first told to me by my elderly neighbor who was asking me, did that sound like smart financial moves due to the nature of this podcast? I told him I was on the fence, and there are some red flags to be concerned. My motto, you can always outspend a fortune. Lottery winners are especially vulnerable to these sudden losses and bankruptcy. I know it seems unimaginable with such a large sum, but the pressure to buy more and the unawareness of short and long-term costs can quickly lead to a spiral. An inheritance, too, is a sudden windfall, but for the most part, those can be anticipated and structured with some lessons or advisors in place. The lottery comes with much more chaos and vulnerability. Sadly, I remember back in the double O's learning of one 2001 Powerball winner, David Lee Edwards, who seemed to be managing his money well while flossing. Well, only a few years later, he was deep into a drug addiction, his latest wife, a drug addict too. Within 5 years, in 2006, living in squalor and a vicious divorce. and in 2013, he will die in hospice, penniless. Another story from 2013, the then largest sold jackpot winner was elderly 84-year-old Gloria McKenzie in Florida. Her Powerball win yielded $590 million with a $371 million lump sum payout and after taxes down to $278 million. Within 5 years, she was suing her son Scott for mismanagement and abuse. She died in 2021 before the suit was settled. Castro himself is already facing multiple lawsuits, which is one of the major side effects of such a large and public financial windfall. That's not to say that I didn't get a ticket or two during the larger tail end of the bloated jackpots. Hell, I think it is natural to say we are all willing to try the other side of that fence. With fingers crossed, we avoid the pitfalls. Remember the secrets of old money. Don't show it off, keep things discreet, save more, and hide the periodic dips. Easy come, easy go. It doesn't always come, but it will certainly always go. We are getting to juicier stories that we have long been building up to. This fall is going to be a very bumpy and tumultuous ride for some of our regulars. Love is in the air when a brief affair is uncovered as a love triangle flips. Meanwhile, a Ponzi scheme is exposed. Love, sex, and money are complicated matters. Hearts beware when fortunes are the more coveted targets. The past can be so beautiful, and thanks to Gary Lawrence, whose Instagram and Facebook groups, Mansions of the Gilded Age and the Gilded Age Society, regularly feature many of the cottages and people discussed in today's episode. We can revisit many of these beauties whether too far away or have been lost in time. He also hosts several webinars from New York Adventure Club. Come listen to Gary discuss with great details the homes of the elite and several of our characters at www.nyadventureclub.com. Gary is also developing a YouTube channel, and with his amazing archival collection, it's so going to be worth a look. Links in the notes and transcript. If you enjoy As the Money Burns, then please share, like, and subscribe. Next, when we return to As the Money Burns, at another sunny beach enclave, a romance blooms into a twisted love triangle between a prince and two heiresses. Until then, As the Money Burns is an original podcast written, produced, and voiced by Nikki Woodard based on historical research. Archival music has been provided by Past Perfect Vintage Music. Check out their website at www.pastperfect.com. Please come visit us at As the Money Burns via Goodbod's Twitter, aka X, Facebook, or Instagram. Transcripts, timeline, episode guide, and character bios are available at asthemoneyburns.com.